All right, thank you everybody for joining us today for a special session of Glenwood Springs City Council. It is May 27th. Want to make sure I'm unmuted. Can everybody hear me? Just give me a quick thumbs up. Thank you. Perfect. All right. For those of you that are called in, it looks like there's about 8 attendees. Just some housekeeping. I see one phone number. If you've called in, dial *9. That will allow you to raise your hand. Actually, we're not taking public comment. Never mind. So there will be no reason to talk. Everybody who is an attendee will be here as purely an observer today for the one item that we have. With that, Catherine, could you do roll call?
Willman?
I'm here. Sorry, I didn't know I could unmute myself.
Voorhees?
Here.
Kaup? Here. Godis?
Here.
Davis? Stepp?
Here.
Hershey?
Tony, that'd be you.
Hershey?
Tony, you might have to join by audio.
It looks like he's unmuted. Well,
I know, but not getting sound.
right. Carl, as far as meeting participation in a technical issue like this, how would you suggest that we?
I think I'd finish the rest of the roll call, and I'll see if I don't know. Tony, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay. I think what we can do, I know it'll be a little awkward, but for this one, maybe Tony can text you directly, Jonathan, if he has a question. No.
You know, there is a phone number on the agenda that was emailed to all of us. And if Tony, if you go to that agenda, you can dial in. And that number is 1-253-215-8782. We get several other phone numbers as well, but if you dial any of those phone numbers, you should be able to call in and be able to comment from the landline. So I guess, Carl, if it's okay with you for us to have him give visual representation that he's here and present, then we can kind of proceed.
No, I think that's fair.
Okay. And then Tony, if you have comments and you want to log on, go to that agenda, look at those phone numbers, and maybe Alyssa can be working on things in the background. I don't know if it's on your end or our end or just Zoom's end. It might be the pipeline as well. So with that, I'll lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Did we finish the rest of the roll call?
Did we? Sorry, Catherine.
Okay.
No, you're fine. We did.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I just realized I did not remove my hat when we did that, so I apologize for the faux pas. Okay, our first and only action today, this afternoon, is our item number 4, pending core request. Carl.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is all on me, and I want to thank the council for making the time to come together today. One of those requests requires your action. It's something that staff can't do without your authorization. And that relates to a request for a portion of the executive session meeting on May 14th. Before I give a recommendation on that, I'd like to just kind of take a step back so that the public and the council so I can sort of frame the issue so I understand what my recommendation is. So underneath the Open Meetings Act, normally we would notice an executive session at least 24 hours in advance, which is with as much particularity as we could. That does not prohibit if there is a late breaking issue or an emergent issue or an issue that needs immediate attention by the council from either the council requesting an executive session, say in the middle of a meeting, something comes up and you're concerned and you want to talk to your attorney. That's perfectly acceptable. Or for, in this instance, it was me that had heard, we had come into some information late in the day. I tried to verify what I couldn't, but I wanted to alert you to that and needed some guidance on that information. And that's why we had added a COVID-19 update to the motion, or at least I thought we did. And so in the pre-meeting, I think we discussed it. Several of us have a recollection around that being added to the executive session. When I went back and listened to the tape, and I know Charlie did as well, and a couple of other folks, we discovered something, and you'll notice right now around my picture is a yellow box. That is what Zoom is recording. So even though oftentimes we hear more than one voice, it records sequentially, it doesn't record everything. And so that motion, which I thought I had made a comment to modify to include, and Charlie made the motion actually, to include the COVID update, did not include it. That prompted me, and actually I was looking at this issue before we ever got the open records request, and you'll recall I sent a letter to the council suggesting that I was no longer comfortable doing executive sessions with this technology because it's very hard to make sure everybody's hearing everything is clicking along the way it normally would if we were in person. And so I have, it's a combination of things that got us to where we are at today. So with that, we know that while we all, I think, believed we were going into executive session appropriately, and when you listen to the tape, nobody objects once either before or when we are in executive session. And I think Jonathan gave a version of his usual intro about objecting if you think we're going outside the scope of the executive session. And so in real time, we all believed we were appropriately there. The downside to that is that 2020 hindsight is always great. And so in looking back at it and recognizing that the recording is not reflective of, I think, what we believed had happened, I'm recommending that we release the audio recording, which is our official record of only that portion of the executive session that related to the COVID-19 update as being the right thing to do in terms of transparency. It normally, I might feel differently. The issues that were discussed that night have become moot at this point, and so I don't view that it's placing the city in a place a place legally where there's some kind of information that I have that we don't want to have out that is of concern because frankly, a lot of what happened in that executive session has been discussed publicly anyway in various forms. So my recommendation, and I think staff's recommendation, is we go ahead and release that audio recording, probably maybe as a link. And I would want to include in that the intro that we did before we started the noticed discussion about 27th Street, and then just clip it so that it's just what's left of that conversation after 27th Street was over, because obviously 27th Street was both properly noticed and of critical importance right now. I don't want that information out in the public realm. The follow-up on this, like I said, is that I am not comfortable, which is why I talked to most of you except Councilor Kaup yesterday about the legal background on all of this, but I just wanted to give that framework. From my standpoint, it's a lesson learned in technology and how we need to do that. And also, Jonathan has, the follow-up to that was being extraordinarily tight about how we run meetings and only having one person talking at a time and trying very hard not to talk over each other and all of those kinds of things. And that relates to the technology we're using. We're moving towards, and I think probably at the next meeting, we're going to be talking about how we think we can go back to in-person meetings in council chambers and getting your kind of sign off on a plan on the June 4th meeting. We're not there yet. So if this is the worst thing that happened because of COVID, I'm pretty happy, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of other things that it could have been a lot worse surrounding. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. But again, my recommendation at this point, just in the interests of transparency and that I don't feel like we're putting the city in a bad light, would be to release that. The other two items I had on the agenda just as an alert to you guys, but also as a reminder, because they were pending and we're going to answer them like we always do from a staff perspective, but also as a reminder to council that in the newspaper, that when we are responding to a formal open records request, whether you are a council member, a member of the press, a member of the public, we have an open records policy that we follow, and that does include certain charges associated with both staff time or copying or things like that, and that we are all subject to that. And I just wanted to make sure that, we all remembered that, because sometimes it's easy to kind of, in any of those categories, to go, hey, I just want everything for the last 2 years of some subject. And you'll recall that we had to respond to a large open records request from RMR, something like, I don't know, it was an outrageous number of emails that we had to go through, dozens of hours of time. And so these requests can be very large and burdensome. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that there is a policy. It does require us to charge. So with that, like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions. And it sounds like Tony was able to get in on the phone. So I appreciate it.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
We'll just do it this way, Jonathan. Thank you.
You bet. I have you as an attendee vocally. So if I'm not, I have to switch over to different views. So if I'm not switching over and need to say something, just visually raise your hand. I'll switch over to the attendee side and I'll call on you. Perfect. All right. So we have, it looks like Tony, Charlie, and Rick with questions. So let's just go right to Tony. You are unmuted, Tony.
Thank you. Mr. Hanlon, can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you so much. Sorry about this technical problem. I'm working on it. So Carl, would it be your legal opinion then that because that portion of the executive session that we discussed was not properly entered into, although may have been properly noticed, then it was not an executive session and thus should be released? Is that the bottom line?
Yeah, that's really the bottom line, is that although we thought we had moved into it appropriately on going back over the tape, that wasn't reflected. And so I'm not comfortable defending it as an executive session.
Thank you so much.
Rick. You're muted, Rick.
Sorry about that. So I'm going to have to leave at 2 o'clock. I was going to sandwich this meeting in, and I don't know if we're ready for a motion or whether you want to have more discussion, but I'm ready to make a motion to release everything that Carl has just mentioned, the clip of the discussion on COVID-19. I don't believe it should be just released to one party. I think it should be made public so that the Post-Independent can look at it and analyze it in the light of what's happened here. I think there's a lot of people in town that would be interested in the transcript, and what they'll hear is 6 committed volunteers and city staff grappling with the politics of a pandemic shift, and with the utmost goal of protecting our citizens. So, and it also offers the reason, I believe, the tantamount reason that we asked Mr. Hershey to resign his seat. When you hear it, he doesn't like the discussion about county officials honoring their oath. And you'll see that he had a chance to object to the topic early on in the meeting prior to that discussion, and he chose to object only after he'd been caught leaving the executive session. So I think that all needs to get out in the public eye. I'm not content with just turning over that tape to an attorney. I think if we're going to go public, that we should go public with it all the way. And so I would make a motion that we honor the 2 written core requests that are before us for written material, and that we honor the request for the tape of the meeting, but that the tape of the meeting be made open to the public as well, and not just to an attorney. Thank you.
You're muted, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick. Before I ask for a second on that, Deborah's had her hand up. So Deborah, go ahead.
To say, it would be my suggestion if council votes to release it, that we just put the link up on our website like we do with all other meetings with that portion taken out. So this way everyone has access to it.
Okay. If you'll accept that friendly amendment, Rick.
Yes.
Wonderful. Charlie, do I have a second and another comment?
Yeah, I have a second, and mostly a question, and I was actually going to ask a question before Rick made his motion. Carl, as I understand the statute, is there a specific, do we necessarily, are we saying we're releasing this pursuant to the statute because it was an executive session? I just want to make sure that we're legally staying on track with what we need to do.
We are, and always you as the council, as the governing body, can make a decision to release any executive session tape, should you so desire. But you have to do it. That's why I couldn't, even though it was my recommendation, I couldn't unilaterally make that decision. I had to look to you for that decision.
So my only other comment is it's kind of following up with Rick says, and I don't want to get all the details of it, but I think there's, given the issues that came up at our meeting last week and the various things that have occurred in the public since, I think it's important for the public to understand the driving force behind our letter to Mr. Hershey. So I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further conversation. I guess I'll put my 2 cents in. Let's see. You know, one of the things that I think is important, even though Mr. Hanlon feels that we didn't have the proper announcing of it because it wasn't recorded correctly. Hold on a second, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. Let me mute a few people here. I'm sorry. Because we didn't have the proper or it wasn't recorded properly that we were adding it. That's why Carl doesn't feel like it is something that he can defend at this point. Typically, I think regardless of the content of our executive session, whether it's good, bad, and different, whether it's very high stakes or not, usually we wouldn't make things available in executive session because it is a time where we can discuss, talk about different strategies on that are basically attorney-client privilege. And at no time did any one of us not think we were in executive session at that meeting 2 Thursdays ago. So really any suggestion that attorney-client privilege was not broken is just incorrect. We all knew that we were in an executive session. We all believed we were in an executive session. And this was the reason that, again, to echo Rick and Charlie's comments, that this is the reason many of us feel that it'll be difficult, if really not impossible, to have any trust going forward, to think that anything that we say in executive session, whether we're talking about RMI and the strip mine, whether we're talking about negotiating on a bridge gone wrong on 27th Street or aspects of that, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for us to have that trust in the future. So I think that's what prompted a lot of this conversation and nearly daily core requests from numerous people. So I'm very supportive of releasing all of this and just getting it out there. So I will be voting for the motion as well. All right. Anybody else? Would anybody else like to speak that has not spoken yet? Okay, if that's the case, Catherine, could you please take roll call, or not roll call, call the question.
Deb,
Yes.
Davis, Godus,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Willman,
Yes,
Hershey,
need to unmute him.
He said yes. I see the thumbs up.
okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tony. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. You heard
Coe?
me.
Yes, thank you. Coe?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you all. That is the only agenda item we had today. Business is concluded. Charlie, I see your hand up. Do you have anything else for the good of the order?
I just wanted to tell the council members in this meeting, say, no, I'm working on the report to get to the subcommittee. It's going to talk about a code of conduct. I'm about halfway through. I haven't been able to work on the last couple of days. I'm going to try to get that out to Deborah, who will get it to the committee and possibly to the council here in the next day or two.
Great. We'll look forward to that. Thank you very much, Charlie. All right. If there's nothing else, meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you making the time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.